Będziemy zaczynać. Dzień dobry Państwu. Witam na panelu poświęconym sprawom środowiskowym, klimatycznym, głównie w kontekście klimatu. Będziemy rozmawiać o tym, jak
the energy of activism can be translated into effective political decisions, effective in the way that they provide for the solutions. To the issues presented in the latest report of the Intergovernmental Team on Environmental Issues. This report states that there is still some chance, there is still some opportunity of saving ourselves against the effects of the climate change, but we need brave, radical decisions to reduce the CO2 emissions and greenhouse gases emissions drastically. For us to stop 1.2 degrees Celsius increase, this level of 2 degrees Celsius, which seemed to be a safe threshold still a couple of years ago, today is considered as a danger. And we got aware of that due to the reading of the eco-policy of our country by 2023, presenting the future of Poland, the Mazovian region, Lodz region turning into deserts. So we know what may be ahead of us, we know what we need to do, abatement of green gases. We also have the framework, because we have the Paris Accord from 2015, which politically, geopolitically, has been announced a huge, howling success. And politically speaking, this Paris Accord should be considered like that. But under this accord, a decision was taken to reduce one third reductions of emissions, which translating into this 1.5 degree Celsius threshold achievement. So we are still missing 2/3. So Paris Accords providing only for 1/3 of the solutions, 2/3 still missing. Donald Trump, remember, saying he would never follow Paris Accord anymore. So maybe we are missing even more. We have splendid guests today. How to come out of the situation? It's a situation defined by Eva Bendyk, called the anthropocentric chaos. We are in the new era. It's not a metaphor, literary metaphor anymore. It's a proposal of our scientists to call this epoch as anthropocentric epoch, where the human beings shaping the environment. We know what the outcomes are, and unfortunately we cannot come up with measures adequate to address our impact on the environment. Our panelists today, ladies and gentlemen, starting from the left, Cécile Duflot from France, former president of the Green Party, this Alliance Europe Ecology, for many years involved in political activities representing the environmental cycles, was a minister for territorial equality at François Hollande government. In 2017, she ceased with the political activity and is now the director of Oxfam France, so from politics to social activism. Monika Sadkowska, activist, the organizer of Camp for Climate campaign. I think this experience may be of interest to us. And Radosław Gawlik, an activist, a politician. He was was the MP of the first term of office, then he continued as the MP, Vice Minister of the Environment in the years 1997-2000. Back then, together with Professor Szyszko, who was the minister, Radosław was the vice minister, and they went to Kyoto to this summit. Or he represented the government, actually. Yes, he was in the official capacity back there in Kyoto. Later on, the co-president of the Green Party. And my name is Edwin Bendyk, and I'm a journalist in Polityka magazine. So,
chciałbym od pani Moniki zacząć, jeśli można.
Let me start from Monika. Monika,
zanim doszło do obozu dla klimatu,
because you organized this camp for climate campaign, you organized other seminars searching for answers to questions, to such environmental related questions. And my first basic question to the activists, aren't you frustrated? What drives you to keep on working, keep on doing, not giving up? Although we do what we do, we try to convince as many people as possible, but still, let's face it, in Poland, the climate issues are not the top priority. We are like a schizophrenic society. The research shows that we are ready to admit pretty radical pro-climate politics, like higher costs of energy, if needed. Over 60% of Poles are ready to bear such costs, to accept radical governmental action for climate improvement, but only 18% of Poles consider climate as an important issue. So, how to cope with such discrepancy? Clear? Yes. Yeah, a pretty personal question, I would say.
Nie wiem, wydaje mi się, że to jest, w moim przypadku to jest...
Well, in my case, how I cope and where do I look for fuel for my activity? Well, there is a different strategy every now and then for not giving up. Maybe not every day, but every now and then you need to come up with something new. It's good when it is not anger, although sometimes anger is the only thing that is left. But activism based on anger cannot dwell for long. I think it's some kind of adventure for me. I am a climate activist, a nice name, a nice label, and I've been like that for 2 years now. Earlier on, I lived without thinking about climate. I was an actress and I even played a role in a play on climate, but I was not interested in climate at all. So this case of schizophrenia that I have personally about me is something that is a mystery that I need to solve, a puzzle that I need to solve. And probably in the minds of many people who do not consider climate change as important, there is some mystery in their minds. And then this magic moment comes. You are in the middle of the performance of the play on climate change, and then you suddenly immediately jump into the middle of climate change activism. I think that drives me. So the secret inside me, the secret in every single person, to move from knowing about something to acting. All right, so that's the method. That's the method to make this transfer from thinking to acting, and how to convince others, how to make other change, because such seminars confirm it. We often talk within the group of those already convinced, and And we are frustrated then because we kind of talk to ourselves or talk within the same communities. So how to convince others? Because those others have other culture codes in Sims. Maybe the religious language could be the key. So starting this religious code, maybe in Poland, well, we are thinking on it all the time, to be honest, and we'll be trying various strategies in practice. We are thinking on what for people in Poland is important. What is important for people in Poland? People are overworked, people are tired, people are not remunerated properly for their work. Maybe that's the starting point to talk about climate. Is it? Thinking in categories, well, we talk about this energy transfer, but in Poland it's important to reduce energy or power use. So what does it mean to reduce consumption? If we think about it, maybe you do not have to work that much, maybe you do not have to buy that much, work less, earn less, and rest more. Maybe that could create this synergy effect, reducing consumption on the one hand, but also kind of activating people on the other. On the other hand, not working that much, not earning that much, not buying that much. An important topic is also thinking about people who are economically disadvantaged, lower salary status. Yes, with those people, we should talk to them. Stop eating meat. Yes, we should stop eating animals and dairy products. Buy tofu or buy eco-clothes. Well, now this message is not the right one. We've been thinking about it for a long time, for weeks and months. Well, these people should learn that they will bear the highest costs of the climate change, because those economically disadvantaged are always most affected. In the first line, they are most affected by the climate change. So how to educate and about what to educate without this paternalistic approach and okay, let's change the context and the country. Let's move to France, to big politics. France is the country. Starting from the Paris Accord, France is associated with the leadership in this approach. Without Paris Accord, Paris Accord could never be achieved without the involvement of French politicians and activists. That was still at the presidency of François Hollande when Macron also continued with this claim. Macron said there would be no planet. The symbol of the transformation was Nicolas Hulot, the Minister of the Environment. You have a different name of this ministry, I know. And a couple of weeks ago, Nicolas Hulot slammed the door, stating that he couldn't do what Emmanuel Macron was mentioning. So the question, Nicolas Hulot was not fit for the function as the activist, or maybe we are still in this model of making politics which does not offer any opportunity for executing aims like we want to execute.
That's the right question. I think it was very strange for us to see our president becoming the champion of Earth a few weeks ago, because the domestic politics he leads for the moment are not at all the explanation of the resignation of Nicolas Hulot in the same line. So in all criteria, gas emissions, for example, last year, public transportation, all main politics are not in the line with the Paris Agreement. But my wondering is that we are here in a large debate about World in Focus, about the future of Europe, but the last report of IPCC shows if we are not moving very far, very quick, with another solutions, 10 years or 12 years, in 12 years, the world will have changed deeply. And we don't know if we can go back. So it's a real mystery for an ecologist for a long time that everything happened higher and higher, and nobody moved clearly. I mean, no international leaders, economic or politics. They think that words are a solution. I mean, you say we have large declaration, we have the Paris Agreement, but the Paris Agreement on the paper doesn't work if there is not real politics. The commitment of all these big leaders are not at the level of the necessity. So what can we do? Because I don't want to, to cry. I think we need a form of, I don't know if we can use that in English, but in French it does work, sacred union. I mean, all citizens and activists on the direct action, political leaders and economic leaders have to work together. It's not the responsibility of one or another. It's too late for that. It's not only your right, of course. The individual comportments, it's not only, you can't say, if you change you individually, it's the solution. That's false. We have to change everything. We have to close all coal mines, all coal power plant, of course. And it's difficult, and I know it's difficult. It's why I think we have to act together. Everybody has to be in front of their responsibility. And I think the resignation of Nikolai Loh is very interesting because he said one thing very interesting. He said, if ecology is not on the desk, on the priority of prime minister or president, nothing happens. I mean, it's a battle between the agricultural minister and the ecology minister for years and years. And in fact, the reality, I try to explain that in English. Sometimes some people say to ecologists, oh, you are never happy. Even when we make little efforts, you always say it's not sufficient, it's not sufficient. But it's like you ask to an engineer that he has to go to the moon with the engine of a bicycle. And if we say to him, if he says it's impossible to go to the moon with a bicycle, you answer him, oh, you are not very, very fine. We offered you a bicycle and you are not happy. It's exactly the same problem with the issue of climate change. It's not to be happy or not. Is it efficient? Is it sufficient or not? And I think it's late, but the IPCC report shows that it's not impossible at all. We just have to change really very highly the level of priority. And it's not ecology's business. The save of our humanity, our planet, it's not an ecology's business. It's a collective issue, really. And my personal priority, I'm a green for a long time, so I can realize that what we said 30 years ago, 15 years ago, 10 years ago is the reality, or maybe the reality is worse that we tried to say 10 years ago. So maybe we will front something. I think the last summer, very brutal, very shocking for a lot of people, even in the northern of Europe, is maybe a moment to realize what happened. Because another thing difficult is that when we speak about 1.5 degree, everybody think, okay, 18.5 versus 17, it's not a problem. But in fact, it's not 1.5 degree. It's totally a transformation of the planet balance. And I think a lot of people start to realize that. And I hope that the answer will be a huge cooperation. But I think the time is to act on all sense. The citizen side, the activist one. I think it's a good news to stop the mine in Germany with not legal method, if you want, but it's important. It's important too to change the way of think of a lot of economic leaders, because they are the keys, and it's very important that the political leaders are front of the reality and not only the thing they say, like our president.
Okay, you said that we need to act together. So how do you think who should be a leader of building such coalitions? Activists, politicians, or how to trigger this movement?
I am, for the moment, maybe it's an explanation for me, in an NGO which believe in the citizen power. I think for the moment, the only political solution, I mean in political men or women, is not sufficient. So if what I think is true, that a lot of people realize the climate change in their own lives and want to move, the power of citizens, the pressure with activist method, the pressure with democratic method, the pressure with consumption method, I mean the change in food and this decision of a lot of consumers, I think it's very important. So we have to push and be numerous. I think the number of people who move is very important. So I believe in the citizen power and the public and collective power.
Okay. Thanks. Radek, masz doświadczenie też i aktywisty.
Radek, you also have some experience of an activist and a politician.
Właśnie, jak
So how do you see it? How would you build the mechanism of political rationality? What to do to make pro-climate decisions attractive? How to influence politicians? Because I know it can be really surprising. Small pressure groups can generate big effects because of how well they are organized. For example, the fact that we believe in coal so much in Poland, it is just a pressure of a relatively small group, but important in the structure of the economy and politics. However, we've burned so much money with which, long time ago, we might have satisfied all the objectives, thermomodernization of Poland. All the money invested in the mines today would give us energy efficiency at the level that would put us at the forefront. We would be at least at the level of Denmark. I will answer your question in a moment, and I would use a good and a quite special example of smoke alarms that did trigger some change and show us how things can be done. Here we have colleagues from Krakow. They were awarded fairly for the smoke alarm initiatives. But first, I will ask our dear audience, because Monika, you inspired me saying that 2 years ago you dealt with climate but didn't read too much about it. And I've been reading about climate change for 40 or 50 years. 30 years ago, well, at the round table, we suggested that renewable energy shall be developed. And again, that we should go away from coal. It is written down in documents signed 30 years ago. So 30 years passed, and we live in a totally different world today. However, I would like to tell you the following thing. If we had known that in 3 years' time the system would fall apart, the civilization will be in crisis because of different problems, say financial crisis. 10 years ago, nobody could foresee that we'll have a financial crisis because of immobilities in the US. We are building the same kind of protective zone for miners. We don't invest in other than fossil fuels. And if you could go fortune telling and say that in 3 years' time it's going to be a big crisis. During the Congress, I talked about war. It's a war to survive. If you have such a vision, then you have to behave like during the wartime. You have to make strategic plans that would prepare us for the crisis, that would prevent the catastrophe. And I base it all on my knowledge, the knowledge of many experts, and the report that you refer to. It's not a remote speculation. It can happen in 3 or 5 years' time, maybe 7, or maybe in 1 year. Well, this is the status quo, and please analyze what I say. I can send you different articles that say climate specialists 20, 30 years ago said certain things and they had to emigrate because they were persecuted. So they left the US and they work in Denmark today. And they say they were persecuted because they were pessimistic in their forecast. And please imagine, today CO2 is increasing, Earth temperature is elevating. We have proofs, we see it every year. It's warmer last summer. Today, it's like in Athens. It's like Athens or Sofia. Well, sun low, but it's warm, nearly 30. The climate is changing, warming up. We are going away from the linear increase in temperature. It's exponential. Perhaps that's the moment. And it's not a big speculation. It may really break financially, human migration-wise, people will start running away from hot zones. There are different elements of the world crisis. That's why today we should follow what the climate report says, and we should instantly stop in all the countries using what we have, because our position is much better. Technically doable, financially doable. It's not super expensive. It's just a couple of percent of the global GDP. Not doing it, forget it. Then you don't talk about percentage. Then you talk about the break and the catastrophe. This is a script of Mad Max, catastrophe movies. And some people would say, all right, we have the time. Ecologists are always presenting black visions, but it's not ecologists. This is also the voice of scientists. There's a great article in Politica Weekly of a specialist who analyzes Arctica icebergs, and she presented bad visions years ago. However, the reality is worse than her vision. There's the feedback now, the exponential change. Sun is not falling on white snow, but black ocean. And temperature grows up faster. It's out of control, but stop it. I do believe, you will also believe that it's true. If all of us believe in it, we'll have a social change. And it's one of the elements of the change, to prepare the knowledge, what should be done, what's going on. It was done by the smoke alarm. In Krakow, they worked on it for 4 years, and they started analyzing the impact on health in Krakow city. And I was puzzled why nobody ever analyzed it. And here we also have an impact on human life and health. Climate change result just like smoke in increased frequency of heart attacks, as well as other diseases. It can be counted. It's something that you find in reports. This is the first step, showing that it's a threat to our health and life. And another issue, the preparation of social grounds. And when did that change occur? Smoke-wise, it was January last year, 2017, when we had huge smoke problem. And then Warsaw dissidents realized that we also had smoke in Warsaw, that it's not somewhere far away in the south, Krakow town, the mountains, but we have smoke here as well, and it kills people. 50,000 deaths a year due to contamination. And it turns out that even the government realized this, and they had quite a good 14-point program. With the execution, it's a different story, but the program was written, and there is the constant social pressure and the media. In consequence, we in Krakow, we also tried hard, and instantly they made people realize January and the months and the following months they demonstrated huge change that's lasting. So it mobilized politicians. There were anti-smoke acts adopted in different provinces of Poland. I'm in Warsaw Metro and I read the information what to do to prevent smoke. So we also have local authorities acting to improve the situation of Poland that's very much at the end of Europe in protection. And to close, because I'm rather talkative, it will occur, the change will occur.
Well, we probably need to face some disaster, some catastrophe, and politicians also need to be touched with such a catastrophe. I don't know, a gale destroying the roof of the parliament, but something that touches them. So we need to really experience something in order to mobilize ourselves. This smoke from January 2017, that was such an element. Well, it was prepared by the smoke alarms. The media, when the smoke occurred, they approached the specialists. Specialists explained, and then there was this snowball effect. With climate, a similar thing needs to happen, I think. IPCC of global scientists, well, it will not change much until we have this boom effect, this disaster. Well, social support is needed so that this snowball gets bigger and bigger, and so that politicians feel it. One more element from me before I ask our audience to join. So the power of citizens, we mention it a lot, and the power of the people, increasing awareness, which activates people. You gave the example, the smoke alarm. The ozone hole was such an example as well, but a factor was different. The business changed its awareness. When they discovered that they could replace freon with something else, then the business joined and they supported the freon, the regulations to remove freon. The United States are a very important element. Barack Obama, he proposed something which was called a clean power plan. It was impossible to establish it as the law, so he implemented it by means of the regulation of the Agency of the Environment. Never effective because the court stopped it. But although it never became effective, the emissions were reduced by more than planned in Barack Obama's plan. But it was business again. Business again decided that it was not effective anymore to use coal. Coal has much more interesting and much more cheaper alternative. So maybe not the power of people, but the power of money. That it's worthwhile, cost-wise, to become green. So a question to you, maybe we should search for allies in enterprises, in capital, in the business.
I think Oxfam analysis is that there is both problems. An economic problem, a non-human economic rules that increase inequalities in all of the world, cross with the ecological crisis. And we have to solve both problems. And of course, the power of money is important, but the power of money is the power of taxes, is the power of a fiscal policy, of fiscal choices, so of political choices. But of course, you can make economic rules moves if you decide to change the rules. And we promote this change at a global level on the, on the ecological issues, but on the economic too. And I have to say that maybe we have to have the boom in front of us, especially in the United States or in Europe. I don't know, maybe it's a necessary point. Maybe one event will shock everybody. Maybe the situation that they will no more have Bordeaux wine, like long time ago. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe something will make a lot of people react. But the point is that the agenda is difficult. Because the decision you take to fight climate change have very strong effect on the life and economic life immediately and on the re-election of politicians. But are needed for 15, 17, or 20, or 100 years. So that's a very important thing to know, that a lot of politicians doesn't want to decide things difficult for the moment. I talked yesterday with the mayor of Varsovia, because the mayor of Paris, Anne Hidalgo, decided very strong choices. And I think maybe it's easier for local politicians than national one. So another key maybe is to decline the objective in local territories. Because, for example, our gas emission, our emission of greenhouse gas, we are 10% of the richest of the planet, and the consequence, we produce 50% of the greenhouse gas emission. But the main victims are in Africa and Asia, and they produce for 50% of the poorest inhabitants of our planet, produce only 10% of the greenhouse gas emission. So there is a huge inequality in the climate consequences too. So if we want to face the reality, I think we have to both fight climate change and inequalities. We have to front the reality that we have a non-human economy, using resources built by nature for thousands and thousands of years in about 1.5 years. It's not durable anymore, sustainable anymore. We have to understand this reality. My hope is that young generation who will live the consequences of other generation understand that better than the actual leaders, economic or political leaders. So maybe a change of generation, even if it's late, could be a chance for us. But what I said about the declination of local intervention, I think it's a good way to think that. You can imagine you have the objective of Paris Agreement, and each state, each nation knows what she or he has to do, it has to do, but we can do that in a city, you can do that in a department, in a region, and maybe we can use this declination to act strongly against climate change. But I really want to say that even if you talk about Article 7 and Poland and the role of Commission, I think the main issue on the agenda of the Commission and of Europe should be climate change. Because all that debate about, even about Brexit, about our future together, if we are to front hurricanes and drought and enormous meteorological catastrophes, it will be very, very secondary. I think everybody has to understand that, even here.
Thank you. Pani Moniko?
Tak, to ja tutaj się bardzo zgadzam.
Yes, I truly agree, and I would like to refer to this claim made during the IPCC conference. We are not in the luxurious situation where we can pick, when we can choose, do this or do that. Should we join this group or should we join that group? No, we should all united, act united. When we talk about money, people who have big money, yeah, that's the moment when we need to be with them in company. I mean, capital money will go in this direction in which it can multiply. Doesn't matter if it's a good aim or bad aim. We have regions in Poland, like Koniński region, where a company who excavates the lignite coal, while the owner of this company, like a good father offering jobs, no, he's just a businessman. He's not interested in that. He just wants to make money. He's not a good person offering jobs. And let's not count on the fact that it may change somehow. Let's go together and let's watch one another all the time. We need to watch people around and ourselves around. What shocks me when we talk about money and how nature goes arm in arm with money, well, you cannot evaluate everything. How to value the acidification of oceans? How much is it to acidify the oceans? Is there a supermarket where you can buy a clean ocean back because we destroyed our earlier ocean? No. There is some mistake in trying to monetize all that. Of course, at a certain point of time, we need to approach the Ministry of Health and say, yes, it's going to cost you a lot, because all those ill people, because of smog, people go on sick leaves, people die, and suddenly I realized that I need to talk with my ministry like with business. So with my ministry, I need to talk with the language of business. How has it happened? It shouldn't be like that, I think, because they are not businessmen. I mean, the ministry is a body from a completely different source. So monetizing the ecosystem services, how to value it, it cannot be valued because you cannot buy it back. So do not believe that you can save on everything or that you can make money on everything. That's a trap. That's dangerous. Yes, but the world is economic by nature, and it calculates a lot. Well, the death of a person, 2.3 million PLN, that's the cost of somebody's death. That's how it's calculated. Yes, it's being calculated. There are people who make such calculations. In my presentations, I show it. For 45,000 victims, 90 million PLN. It's more than the National Health Fund spends on treating people. Of course, it's defective because talking about values, we drew people's attention to that. A Polish example. For years, there is this huge resistance of abandoning coal. Coal is like sacred element. We are the last country in Europe that builds something on the monopoly of coal. We think that we are stable because we have coal, but actually it's unstable because it's extremely unstable because it's a threat to all of us being founded on coal. Moving to political decisions, restructuring, abandoning coal, energy efficiency, energy renewal. Renewable energy is turning cheaper and cheaper. So again, economy makes this the first step. In Konin, somebody told me, EU waived custom levies on Chinese solar panels, so it's going to be even cheaper. So everybody can now afford to buy a solar panel, catch energy from the sun, produce energy, and consume this energy at the same time. The prosumer approach. Well, there's a whole. I think the president of the PGE company, the power plant, wrote that prosumer policy should not be implemented in Poland because it may have a negative impact on the Polish power industry. He was so open to say that. So do not offer money on renewable sources because it will hit the coal. Net metering, that makes it really possible for us to use eco-solutions. Professor Stopczyk, I need to call his name. There are solutions in... I have this badge in the coalition which is called development yes, open cast excavation no. So we act against open cast excavation of the lignite coal. Do not build new power plants based on peat. 21st century and to build the power plant for peat, at the same time drying peatland in order to consume it. It's the worst economy ever, devastating for the agriculture as well. So development, yes. Save energy, use renewable energy sources. We are ready. Farmers find it economic to join renewable energy sources. Professor Sobczyk, the guru of dispersed distributed energy sources, 2 years ago we talked and he created a plan. What to do? Stop nonsense investment based on fossil fuels like coal, like open cast mines, nuclear energy, or transforming coal into atomic energy. No, it's not a solution. So zero investments that cause climate degradation. Number two thing, support the market, the prosumer market development, the market for each and every one of us. Each of us should produce power. Energy democracy. We have 4 power companies, huge power companies. They are extremely resistant because they know that otherwise they may lose power. It's transferring power to the hands of people, small companies, other companies like Apple, for instance, basing their operations on renewable sources, and that in Poland that could happen as well. KGHM, the huge mining company, they tried to shift their attention from coal to renewable energy. Then they came back to gas, but they are doing something. But definitely we need to step back from these huge power companies without closing them, of course, because you cannot close everything, but over the years to come, build the new energy sector, the prosumer sector, and the change of tariffs. That's number 3, change the tariffs. So regulations preferring the distributed and renewable energy sector. Renewable energy, number 1, should be. I think we are also capable of saving huge loads of energy, like 30% in the construction business, for instance. It's being started. Under this pressure, the government made a really good step. I do not like this government right now, but they made a good program, and in this program you can insulate your house, heat refurbish your house or your apartment, and you have some donation depending on your income. It's up to 90% of co-financing. The minimum copay is 30%, the maximum is 90%, so you may apply, and let's do it. Apply for it. Let's have thousands of people applying for the heat insulation, for Ecoheat boiler.
Ale zatkajmy te fundusze.
So let's close or clot the funds with our applications. Technically, financially, we are able to introduce the change. What is needed is the will of the decision makers. So this is the chance for politicians to build a political career on the transformation. Thank you. That's the moment when we would like to engage you, the audience.
Nie wiem, czy po polsku, czy po angielsku. Może. Okay.
I don't know whether I should use.
Okay, let's make it in English. My name is Ostap Kośnier. I represent Lazarski University here in Warsaw. So I have 2 questions, and one question goes with a reflection first, because one of the issues you overlooked in your speeches was the Nobel Prize in Economics, which like 5 days ago was won by Professor William Nordhaus, and he actually, created a model how to use the existent, technologies, economic facilities, and contribute to the renewable energy. And his idea was to introduce the carbon emission tax, worldwide carbon emission tax. Will it work out? How do you think? This is the first issue. And second issue, which comes with the reflection, is we are living in the world of electrification. So electric cars are the future. But if you look at the researches done by scholars, 2010, 2012 by Americans, it appears that in order to produce one electric car, you pollute the air 2 times as more as one internal combustion car. In order to produce lithium-ion battery, you need to mine lithium, to mine cobalt, which is also very polluting. And the major thing is recycling the used batteries. So, there is no infrastructure to recycle the battery, and the battery, okay, it does not, pollute, it does not emit CO2, greenhouse gas, but it contaminates water, contaminates soil, and it's inflammable. So, how do you think is that switch to electrification? So let us switch to electric cars, to renewable energy, and pump as many batteries as possible to store that energy. Is it a temporary thing, or is it the mainstream thing? Thank you.
Okay. Let's get together other questions. And czy jeszcze ktoś chciałby z Państwa dołączyć?
Do we have more questions?
Jeszcze 10 minut, więc jeszcze.
We still have 10 minutes, so we have space for 1 or 2 questions or comments.
Może
1 second, maybe we'll give the space for others.
To bardzo proszę jeszcze dołączyć.
Yes, please.
Wtedy już wrócimy do panelistów.
And one more question. I'm sorry for taking the stage. This is the question about the solar panels. Yeah, because if you wish to produce a solar panel, you need to melt silicium. The melting point of silicium is about 1,000 degrees Celsius. In order to reach that point, you burn fossil fuels. You burn gas, you burn oil or coal. So the point is, and this is the point in China. So yes, they produce a lot of solar arrays, solar panels, but this becomes the issue of their own environment and the global environment, because they are polluting the environment by producing. And the second issue, oh man, okay, fine. We have installed a lot of solar arrays on all the roofs. And here you have the wind, which just tears everything off. And it cracks, it gets broken, and again, solar arrays, when they are getting broken, they are, you end up with the tiny pieces of also quite contaminative elements, which you cannot pick up from the ground, because, the array is broken. So again, my question is that solar energy impetus, is it a temporary thing or a long-lasting thing?
Dziękuję. Perhaps we begin with you.
I try to answer, but I just want to explain that what is interesting in what you say, that a lot of people think we can keep this model but change the resource, substitute coal by electricity. Or it's not the point. The reality that we have to go toward a sobriety model. It's not the same. It's not another car, an electric car. It's not another train. It's not another plane. It's a sobriety model. The first energy, the better energy, is the energy we don't use. But we have to cut with a waste civilization. We have the use to waste and to consider that renewable not renewable resources are illimited. It's very strange when you think to that. It's very new, but I think it's the broken economic model too. We do the same with people. We cut with a society of equality and sobriety and use a normal use of resources. So I don't think that solution is electric cars or electric panels. I think the solution is sobriety, the proximity, another way to produce food, for example, not an industry. We don't speak about the agriculture, but I think an agroecologic model is more rich in work for people, but is less use of industry entrance or chemical entrance. And it's good for collective health too. So I think we have to change our model globally. It's why it's difficult. But finally, it's maybe easier. We have to invent a new way. And for the first point of your intervention, maybe we have to invent a new mondial tax or new mondial regulation. Maybe it's easier to obtain that than to obtain country decision in a very competitive world. Maybe it's a part of the solution. But what is sure is we have to invent very new solution, not to green the way we live together for the moment. That's true.
Thank you. Radek, to teraz ty, bo pani Monika zaczynała.
Radek, it's your turn because Monika started, so now the privilege. Thank you very much. Very interesting questions in general. Well, emission taxation. Ladies and gentlemen, we have to be aware of it. As of 1989, the National Fund, prepared by the previous authorities, got into full swing after the changes. At that time, I was in the supervisory board of the fund. They introduced a system of payments for industrial use of the environment, so in one word, payment for emissions. So the system of eco-funds during the first 10 years after the change, well, I would say the cost was updated, and the cost really had an impact on management. People in the West are not aware of it because they don't have similar systems. Several countries, new countries, learned watching the Polish developments, learned how to taxate emissions. We managed to finance sewage treatment plants with the EU money, but also with our own financial input. We managed to reduce sulfur oxide emissions, nitrate oxide emissions. We have pure rivers. You can talk to anglers what happened, what the rivers, like Oder River or Vistula River, looked like 30 years ago. And I think in the past we did have emission taxation on CO2, but we are based on coal and it's a political issue. However, the mechanism was introduced in the past. Fortunately, in the EU, CO2 emission payments, which is horrifying, the coal lobby, the increase from 5 to 25 euro with it. Fossil fuels are no longer payable. So it does work. However, I remember I read books of ecologists, economists written 20 years ago. They said that you have to economize environmental attitudes. The impact on the environment shall be included in the economic calculations. I can give you a short example. I remember in the 90s, heavy metal, biphenyls and emissions, and the industry didn't have a way to control it. And then somebody put a very high price, 1 million for 1 kilo. It was a massive amount of money, emissions. And then during 2 years, the industry changed the technology, and such pollutants were instantly eliminated. There was a price pressure, so instantly they found a solution. And I think with carbon, we would be able to do the same. If you include the carbon tax and if you persistently introduce the taxation across Europe, perhaps the world will be in a different situation today. I fully agree that there's no simple substitution. Regular combustion vehicle and electricity-powered cars. In Wrocław, the number of vehicles is significantly different from the numbers of vehicles used per capita in Berlin, and we are being strangled. And even without emissions into the air, vehicles, passenger cars, take space. They push us out, human beings, from the social area, and it is one of the elements of why we should change the model. And I think the clash that we will see it sooner or later. I'm a pessimist, perhaps I should say it at the end. Without the clash, without the catastrophe, we won't change. There must be a big blow with many casualties. Then politicians would say there's no other way, we have to do it, and perhaps then we'll be able to build a new world. So transportation built on car sharing and public transportation, we know how it should look like. We shouldn't have so many passenger vehicles. You don't need to have a car to drive it, and if you have 50% less of vehicles, you could have 5 times less, I guess. There's no need for one person to travel in a passenger vehicle that weighs 1 ton or 1.5 ton. The Greens talked for years that it's not useful at all. We love driving cars. On the other hand, it's so irrational and so ineffective a solution, and it's still hard with emissions. It's interesting in what you said about, I don't know whether it's true, perhaps it is true. It's harmful as any other production. However, the clash should rationalize our production of electricity. We should have a closer look on the consequences. And by building new, this past, energy, we shall analyze the whole life cycle of products and analyze how they impact our health, our agriculture, industrial emissions, consequences and waste. We talked about nuclear energy sector. Look, for 70 years they've promised that they would do something with radioactive waste, but unfortunately the problem has not been solved, and perhaps it's not solvable, and you cannot have high radiation waste managed. Nobody had an idea. Send it out into the outer space. It's going to be risky for future spacecraft, and you have to be rational in the EU, and we have to apply this principle here. Thank you very much. And Monika, and it's still my time. Yes, please. Well, very briefly, I just wanted to come back to what I said at the beginning. Well, I said I wouldn't like to use the language of economy. Well, we are not in a situation when we can choose to calculate or not to calculate. Surely we have to calculate, and we have to use the language that people comprehend. If they only use the language of economy, you talk by money. But certain people are so poor that they only have money and they understand money only. But fortunately, such people are very few, and we have to use different languages simply. That's great. Thank you. Very good conclusion. Very good conclusion at the end. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not going to... Unfortunately, it's impossible. We have to take a break because soon another panel will start. We have very dense agenda. So maybe we'll talk.
We can simply talk after the session and no problem. So, dziękuję serdecznie Państwu za.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for your interventions. Thank you, dear audience, for your presence. And at least a bit we managed to draw a sketch. Well, Radek, you are the most alarming person. Maybe we'll manage to find a solution a bit earlier. You have to frighten people and show solutions. Psychologists say frightening without showing solutions leads people to depression. So I hope I've managed to demonstrate there are reasons to be optimistic. There are reasons to be optimistic. Thank you. I wish you good debates later on, a beautiful weekend. We have marvelous sunshine.